Let's take these sweaters from the thrift store, plus some old buttons, and turn them into the cutest snowman you've ever seen for your holiday decorating this year. Let's get started. The first thing you need to do is to gather some thrift store sweaters. Now find one that you would want to be the snowman body. I happened to find this thin gauge sweater that had these little polka dots all over it, so it couldn't have been any more perfect. The first thing you have to do is cut it apart so that it will lay flat. That's really important. Well, after you wash it, bring it home, wash it, and then cut it apart. And then grab a dinner plate. Now mine is about a 12-inch dinner plate, and I cut a circle around it a little bit bigger because that just seems to work. I don't know why. Anyway, you take that, and then we're going to make two more smaller circles. So fold that sweater again in quarters so that you only have to make one cut. And lay that first one on the top, and you see it's kind of offset. That'll make that next circle just enough, smaller just by a little bit, so that we'll have a snowman that is graduated in sizes. Now here I am making the smallest one. I had to fold this sweater a couple of times to get it small enough to make that smaller circle. I folded it in quarters so that I only had to make one cut. That ribbing on the bottom of the sweater can come in really handy, so hang on to that. Now, once I got all these sweater circles laid out, I realized that they were still a little bit too big, so I folded them again and I cut off another, I don't know, ½ inch or something like that, just until I felt like they were graduated enough that they would make a nice shape of a snowman. You can see here they measure at 12 inches, and that next one is at 10, and the smallest one is at about 6.5. Your measurements don't have to be this exact, but if that helps you, well, I hope it does help you. Then I grabbed some pearl cotton. This is a heavy embroidery floss, and it's just perfect for this kind of project, and a large eye needle. Now, the thing that we have to do is to hand stitch around the outside perimeter of these circles so that we can draw them up and make a ball, and we're going to stuff them. So this is a simple running stitch, nothing fancy. You just go around the outside edge by about 1/4 inch. You take several stitches at once, pull it through. You'll have this step done in no time. You'll need to add some weight to that very bottom, the largest circle, so that it will have a nice weight to it and it'll stand upright. So I grabbed some poly pellets. You can use some rice if you have that. I would advise against beans. A lot of people have used dry beans, but that can attract some little critters. So I go the safe route and I get some poly pellets and I put them in the bottom. And then I start to stuff these little snowballs. That's basically what they are, is these little snowballs. I have an old pillow that instead of buying new polyfill, I just pulled this pillow apart and I'm restuffing. And then what I do is I draw this circle up real tight with that the stitching that I did around there to kind of hold it in, and then I tied it in a really tight knot. Now that won't be quite enough. That won't be tight enough, so I will have to go back and tighten it again. I'll show you a little trick that I do for that. I continue to stuff it until it's nice and firm and round and soft, kind of all the way around. And then I go on to all of the other circles and I do the same thing, creating these little snowballs. Now, I've been making a snowman every year for the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 years. It's been many years that I've made a new snowman almost every single year. I have skipped one or two. And I have a blog post about this snowman, and another one, the other snowman that I made is just adorable. And he has hit the internet like nobody's business. It is one of my most popular posts on my blog. Everyone on Pinterest loves it. Everyone on Google loves it. They absolutely love this upcycled sweater snowman. It's a great tradition to start for yourself, to make one new every year because depending on the sweater, the snowman is going to look different. You'll see what I mean as we go along. But it seems that everyone loves to upcycle and repurpose, old things that you find at the thrift store and find new uses for them. And making a snowman out of old sweaters, well, this just kicks off the Christmas season for me. I've shared this before here on YouTube, but not many people watched it. And I just wanted you to see it, so I decided to recreate this whole video and also let you know about the blog post so you can be inspired to make your own sweater snowman. Now you see there on that snowball, it was not pulled really tight. So what I did was I threaded another needle with that pearl cotton, and I went back and forth, and I just kept pulling that cotton and knotting it till it got nice and tight. Then I grabbed that glue gun. I mean, who can do anything without a glue gun? Glue guns are just so handy to have. And a sip of coffee, of course. And I put plenty of glue in between each one of these snowballs. And then I pressed it down to make sure it made really good contact. And I pressed it down until it was completely cooled off. I didn't want it to come apart. And I just held my hand there for a couple of minutes and we were good to go. Okay, now the fun part, we get to dress this snowman. And this is where it gets really creative with the kind of sweaters that you pick out. Now I found this one, it had this button placket on the front that I thought, oh, this is gonna be just perfect. Let's see what I can come up with. So again, I opened up this sweater by flattening it out. I cut the side seams and all that. And then I just started to imagine what I could do with this sweater. And I realized that it could be like a cape. So I wrapped it around the snowman's neck and I just started cutting out this round shape towards the back side of it. I took it off and then I folded it in half so that I could make sure that both sides were even, and then I cut it. That would just make it more even. I removed those buttons, by the way, because I will be using those later on in this snowman project. So then I just tried this little cape on this snowman. I kind of decided what I thought looked like the front of the snowman. I wrapped it around and I thought, okay, we're looking pretty good. I cut off a little bit more just to add more shape and dimension to this cape. I folded it in half again so that I could create a symmetrical look on both sides, and that worked out really well. This part is so much fun. Have fun looking for sweaters, and don't forget, a lot of the Goodwill and Salvation Army, they have discount days that certain sticker colors are marked down. So try to find out what that color is, and then find sweaters with those tags. And you'll be making one of these sweaters for next to nothing. Now, like I said, I've made these sweaters for years, so I have lots of scraps left over that kind of work together. Like this little cuff is perfect to make a hat. This is the cuff from a sleeve, and all I had to do was kind of cut it to fit around the size of the head of this snowman. And then again, I pulled out that pearl cotton and my wide-eyed needle, and I just did a running stitch up the back. I want these stitches to show. I want this snowman to look homemade and handmade and hand-stitched, and this is the perfect way to do it. So I just stitched up a little seam on the back. I put that cuff over his head and folded it up just right. And then we had this little topper. So then I have this other piece of leftover sweater from some other project, and that sweater was crazy looking. I mean, you can just tell by the look of this thing, but the colors were perfect and so whimsical on the hat for this little snowman. I just took a little section and I tied it, and then I took my scissors and I cut into it to make it look like fringe. I mean, this little hat, it is just adorable on this snowman. I have a large collection of old buttons that I have been collecting for years and years. So I dug into my stash and I picked out some buttons that I thought would look good. And then I tied one of those buttons on the hat to make it look as though the little flap is folded up and held on by that button. And again, that pearl cotton with the string showing just adds that handmade look to this whole thing. So I did add a little dot of glue on the back to make sure that that hat stays on. And I might have even put a little dot of glue, yeah, there on the top, just to make sure that that hat stays on, you know, during when it's packed away. I don't want it to get lost. I didn't have a black bead for the eyes, so I just took a little wooden bead that I had and I colored it with a Sharpie to make little tiny eyes for this fella. Now this pearl cotton is wonderful. I know I keep saying that, but it's really the kind of thread to use on this. It's super easy to use. And all I did was I laced these beads back and forth between each other, and I stitched it up there to the head. I needed to pull these really tight because when you pull the two eyes kind of together, it creates a little bit of a bump, which makes it look like he has a little nose. That's just perfect. Now you could add another button to make it look like he has a little black cold nose. That would be really cute. For me, I just did this here. And I happen to have a whole bunch of these polymer clay noses, carrot noses that I made so many years ago. I made a ton of them, so all my snowmen have just about the same nose because I made them all at once and then I just hot glue it on, or I might have used E6000 actually to glue that on. Now we're going to add some buttons all over this little snowman. I picked blue ones to go with the cape. I have some green ones, cream and gray and all over. And I just randomly stitched these buttons on. I made sure that the string is going to show. So I ran that needle through and then back up through the button, and then I just tied it on with a knot. Because like I said about the other little button on the hat, I want the strings to show, and I want this snowman, this sweater snowman, to look handmade and handcrafted. To me, that's just what makes it special. You could also use other pieces like old jewelry or old decorative beads, broken jewelry. A brooch would be really pretty on this. Earrings, like any kind of beads like that that are jewelry, they would just be beautiful. You could pick all different kinds of buttons, all different kind of colors. You could go monochromatic and do all shades of whites and cream colors. That would be beautiful. Just let your creative mind explode as you add these embellishments. I added a button to the cape so that it would be kind of like its little closure, and I think it's a little gold button there, and that looks just so cute. I cut a hole on the other side so that that button actually works, and I think that adds a nice little touch. All right, let's make this snowman a scarf. We don't want him getting chilly. So I had the same fabric from that other sweater and a longer piece, and I cut it down, and then you see me stretching it. This was a 100% wool sweater, and it will stretch and just really look really different when you do that. I don't know what happens, but the fibers, anyway, just trust me, it looks good. Then I cut some fringe on the end, and it just matches the colors of the scarf, just coordinates so well with the cape and with the hat. I love how it looks. Now, as I was looking at the cape, I felt like it needed something else around the edge. So hang on, and I'm going to show you what I did to the edge of this cape. Oh, that's right. I did use E6000 to glue on that little carrot nose. I let him dry for quite a while because I didn't want that nose to fall off. And then once I started looking at that sweater, I said I needed to do something else to it. So I grabbed another sweater and I cut off the ribbing from that sweater. I think this was around the bottom edge of a sweater. So I had a really long piece of it. And then I grabbed my hot glue and I just glued it around the edge to make it look as though it had its own little cuff. You could also stitch this piece of trim around this cape. Just get another piece of that pearl cotton, maybe in a contrasting color, and then use that running stitch just to attach it ever so slightly. That would just add another touch of whimsy to this little snowman. I mean, every detail that you add, it's just going to make it look that much better. This little fella is all dressed for the winter season, and he's looking so cute. You'll get a better look here in just a second. Hang on to the very end, because I'm going to be showing you the full reveal of this snowman. Plus, you'll see the one that just about broke the internet. I mean, people went crazy about this other snowman that I made. He has a special detail on his hat. Oh, I can't wait to show you. So stay tuned all the way through to the end so you don't miss that one. Now this fella, he needed some little buttons on his hat. These buttons are teeny tiny. They're for dog clothing. They're antique. They're just beautiful buttons, and I really have no use for them. So this is the perfect use for these buttons. Here's our snowman all dressed and ready for the winter season. Isn't he the cutest? Now stay tuned all the way to the end, because I have that other snowman that I want to show you, and I want you to see the special detail on his hat. And when you see that detail on his hat, make sure that you comment the words that are written on his hat. You're going to love it. See those Christmas trees next to the snowman? You can make some too. I have a free tutorial for those. I'll link that video at the end of this one, so stay tuned all the way to the end. This is my most popular sweater snowman on my blog. Isn't he just the cutest? I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.